The wind had a way of turning the trees into whispering mouths in gray hollow. On nights when the sky bled red into black, even the smallest sound carried farther than it should. 12-year-old Jacob Merritt felt that weight as he slipped past the back porch of his family's farmhouse, bare feet brushing dew-slick grass. He wasn't supposed to be out after dark, not in these woods. But when the thin, starving frame of a stray dog appeared at the tree line, its eyes caught the fading light like 2 coins at the bottom of a well. Jacob followed. He shouldn't have. If stories like this grip you, consider supporting with a simple like or subscribe. It helps more than you know, without costing you anything. Jacob never planned on sneaking out. His father had told him often enough. Nothing good happens in those woods after sundown. The old man said it with the kind of finality that meant he'd seen something there himself once, long before Jacob was born. But the dog had been watching him for days. It lingered near the chicken coop, ribs sharp as fence posts, one ear bent, the other torn clean in half. Not a neighbor's dog. That much Jacob knew. It was feral, yet not wild, as if it wanted something from him. That night, when the dog stepped into the trees and turned once to meet his eyes, Jacob felt his chest tighten. He hesitated only long enough to slip a flashlight from the porch hook. Then he followed. The woods were different at night. By day, Jacob knew the trails well. The bent sycamore where he and his sister carved their initials, the creek with its slippery stones, the clearing where rusted farm equipment lay, like a graveyard machines. But in the dark, the same shapes seemed older, as though they belonged to someone else. His flashlight beam shook as he moved. The dog trotted ahead, too quiet for comfort. Jacob whispered to himself, "Just a dog, just a dog." The silence pressed in. No crickets, no owls, not even a hum of cicadas. Just the snap of twigs under his bare feet. The dog stopped near the creek bed. Its ribs rose and fell quickly, tongue hanging. Jacob crouched. "Hey, boy," he whispered. "You hungry?" He had nothing to offer but the crust of bread shoved in his pocket from dinner. He held it out. The dog sniffed once, but instead of eating, it backed up, gaze fixed not on Jacob but the trees beyond. Jacob turned his light that way. The beam caught movement. Not branches. Not wind. Something else. "Jacob!" The voice cracked through the woods like a whip. His chest jumped. It wasn't his father's voice, too high, too desperate. "Jacob, don't." Then silence. The dog barked once, loud, sharp, urgent. Its hackles rose. It darted into the trees. Without thinking, Jacob followed again. The ground dipped. His flashlight wavered. Roots snagged his feet. Thorns scratched his legs. The dog led him down a slope to a hollow Jacob had never seen before. In the beam of his light, the hollow looked carved into the earth like a wound. And at the center of it, a door, wooden, half-rotten, standing upright where no house or barn should have been. The dog circled it, whining, pawing at the dirt. Jacob's throat dried. He stepped closer. His hand brushed the edge of the doorframe. The wood was damp, soft. The flashlight flickered. From behind the door came a sound, a muffled cry, a child's. Jacob stumbled back, breath tearing at his chest. He wanted to run, to pretend he hadn't heard it. But the dog stared at him, eyes lit with something that wasn't just hunger, something more like expectation. The cry came again, faint, broken, but human. Jacob lifted the latch. The door groaned open. What he saw inside froze him where he stood. The stench hit him first, damp earth mixed with rust and something sour, like old milk left too long in the sun. Jacob gagged and clutched his flashlight tighter, the beam trembling as it lit the cramped space beyond the rotting door. It wasn't a room, not exactly. More like a cellar carved out of the hillside. The air was heavy, stale, so thick it seemed to push against his lungs. He forced himself to step inside. The dog slipped past his legs, nails clicking softly against the packed dirt floor. It moved with certainty, as if it had been here before. Jacob's light found what had made the sound. A boy, no older than Jacob himself, sat hunched against the wall. His wrists were bound with rope. His hair was matted to his forehead, his clothes streaked with mud. The boy's eyes flinched at the light, and when his lips parted, only a whisper came out. "Please, don't tell him. Jacob froze. The dog pressed closer to the boy, whining, tail wagging weakly. Jacob swallowed hard. Who tied you up? What happened? The boy shook his head, eyes darting toward the door as though expecting someone or something to come through it. His shoulders curled inward, protecting himself from an invisible blow. Jacob knelt, fumbling with the rope. His fingers were clumsy, shaking. The knot was tight, slick with dirt and sweat. Behind him, the woods groaned. Not a real sound, not leaves, not wind, more like a shift in the air itself. Jacob's flashlight dimmed again, as though the dark were swallowing a whole. The boy hissed, urgent, "You shouldn't have come." By the time Jacob dragged the boy out of the hollow, his arms burned from pulling at the rope. He had freed only one wrist, but the boy insisted, no time for the other. They stumbled uphill, dirt crumbling under their feet. The dog stayed at their side, panting heavily. When they reached the ridge, Jacob finally caught his breath. "We have to go back to my house. My dad, he'll know what to do." The boy's reaction was immediate. He shook his head violently, backing away. "No, not your dad. Nobody's dad. You don't understand." Jacob frowned. "Why not?" The boy's eyes filled with a fear Jacob couldn't place. Not just fear of someone, but fear of everyone. Then the sound came. A whistle, high-pitched, distant, drifting through the trees. The boy's face drained. "He's coming." They ran. Branches clawed at Jacob's arms. Thorns tore his ankles, but he didn't stop. He could hear the boy's ragged breaths behind him. The dog's paws keeping pace. That whistle followed them like smoke, growing louder, sharper. Jacob didn't dare look back. The trees opened suddenly into the clearing with the old farm equipment. Moonlight spilled over the rusted tractor frames and broken plows. Jacob collapsed beside a heap of iron, lungs screaming. The boy bent double, coughing. The dog barked at the tree line, frantic. "Who is it?" Jacob whispered. "Who's coming?" The boy lifted his head slowly. His lips trembled. "My uncle." Jacob blinked. That wasn't what he expected. The boy's voice cracked. Don't let him find me. He'll kill me this time." They hid. Jacob wedged himself between the old tractor tires, pulling the boy and the dog in with him. The metal smelled of rust, sharp and metallic. He pressed his back against the cold iron, every muscle trembling. The whistle cut off. Silence. Then footsteps. Crunching leaves. Deliberate, unhurried. A shadow moved along the edge of the clearing. Jacob barely breathed. His flashlight was clutched against his chest, switched off now. A man stepped into view. Tall, shoulders like beams. A cap pulled low over his brow. He carried something long in his hand. An axe, its head glinting faintly under the moon. Jacob's stomach dropped. The man paused, head turning. The night seemed to still around him. Jacob could swear the man was sniffing the air like a hound. "Boy." The voice boomed across the clearing. "You think you can run from me?" Think again. The boy beside Jacob curled tighter, muffling a sob. The dog growled low. Jacob gritted his teeth, whispering, "Shut him up, please." The boy buried his face in his arms, holding the dog close. The man prowled closer, boots crunching gravel. Jacob's mind raced. He couldn't sit there forever. If the man searched the clearing, they were trapped. His only chance was movement, something to draw the man away. He grabbed a stone from the dirt and hurled it into the trees opposite their hiding spot. It cracked through branches, landed with a thud. The man's head snapped toward the sound. His lips curled into something like a smile. "You're clever," he muttered. "Clever don't mean safe." He stepped into the trees, disappearing. Jacob exhaled sharply, sweat slick on his skin. The boy clutched his arm. "We have to keep moving. He never stops." Jacob nodded, throat tight. "We'll go to the sheriff. He'll believe us." The boy's face went pale. "No, not the sheriff either. He's worse." They crept from the clearing, heading toward the back road that would eventually lead to town. The dog kept pace, ears alert. Halfway down the trail, Jacob stopped cold. A lantern glowed ahead. Not one, several. Figures moved between the trees, holding the lights. Too many to count. Their voices carried faintly, men low and rough, as though they belonged to some private gathering Jacob had no right to witness. The boy grabbed his wrist, whispering urgently, "Hide!" They ducked into the undergrowth. Through the leaves, Jacob saw the men clearly now, not strangers. Faces he recognized from church, from the feed store, from the gas station. Ordinary men from Gray Hollow. But here, in the woods, their eyes were different. Harder, watchful. One man carried a bundle. He set it down by the lantern light. Jacob's chest tightened when he saw what it was. Ropes, chains, and a burlap sack stained dark. The boy trembled against him. "I told you. No dads. No sheriffs. They're all part of it." Jacob's stomach flipped. He wanted to deny it, to tell the boy he was wrong. But the scene before him was undeniable. This wasn't just one cruel uncle. It was bigger. The men spoke in hushed tones, words Jacob couldn't fully hear. But he caught fragments. Not the first. "Keep it quiet," like before. The dog growled low again. Jacob pressed a hand to its muzzle. One of the men turned suddenly, lantern light flashing across his face. Jacob's breath caught. It was Mr. Weaver, the bus driver, the man who waved every morning when Jacob climbed aboard. Now his eyes scanned the trees with suspicion, lips curled. Jacob stayed frozen, the boy's nails digging into his arm. After a long moment, Weaver turned back. The men lifted their chains, their sacks, and disappeared deeper into the woods. The lanterns bobbed until they vanished completely. Jacob exhaled shakily. The boy whispered, "Now you see." They reached the road just before dawn. Jacob's shirt was torn, his legs streaked with cuts. The boy limped beside him. Every step a struggle. The dog padded silently ahead, tail low, guiding them like a scout. At the edge of the trees, Jacob saw headlights. A truck rattled past, then slowed. The driver rolled down his window. Sheriff Collier. Jacob's heart leapt. Relief washed over him. "Sheriff," he called, stumbling forward. "Help us, please." The sheriff squinted at him, eyes shadowed beneath his hat. He didn't step out of the truck. He just looked at the boy, then at the dog, and he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who already knew everything. The sheriff's smile lingered too long, and Jacob felt the relief in his chest curdle into dread. The boy behind him had gone silent, rigid as stone. Even the dog, so steady before, let out a low growl that rumbled deep in its throat. Sheriff Collier leaned his arm out the window of his truck. "Morning, Jacob. You're out early. Where's your father?" Jacob swallowed hard. His voice wavered. "There's a boy. He was tied up. In the woods. Men with lanterns. They're coming back. We have to." The sheriff cut him off with a chuckle, dry as gravel. Now, that's quite a story. Woods'll do that to a young mind, fill it with shadows." But his eyes didn't soften. They sharpened. They were the eyes of a man who wasn't surprised. The boy gripped Jacob's shirt and whispered hoarsely, "Run." Jacob's breath caught. "What?" "Run," the boy snapped. Sheriff Collier's hand moved toward the passenger seat. Jacob didn't wait to see what he was reaching for. He bolted, dragging the boy with him, the dog barking furiously at their heels. The trees swallowed them again. Behind them, the sheriff's truck door slammed, boots hitting dirt. Jacob ran blind, branches tearing his face. The boy stumbled, nearly pulling them both down, but Jacob hauled him upright, adrenaline burning through his veins. The dog darted ahead, then circled back, guiding, urging him toward some unseen path. A shot cracked through the woods. Bark exploded inches from Jacob's shoulder. He screamed, ducking lower. "Keep moving," he gasped. Another shot. The dog yelped but kept running, ears pinned back. The boy cried out, stumbling again. Jacob dragged him behind a fallen log. Silence fell, broken only by the sheriff's voice carrying through the trees. "You can't hide, Jacob. You think your daddy never knew? He knew. He always knew. That's why he told you to stay out of these woods. Because they don't belong to you. They belong to us." Jacob's heart pounded so loud he thought the sheriff could hear it. He clutched the boy tighter. The boy's lips trembled. He's right. They all know. They've always known. Jacob tried to make sense of it. His father, the men, the sheriff, all tied to that cell in the hollow, to the ropes, the chains. He wanted to shout it wasn't true, that his father wasn't like them. But the boy's eyes held no doubt, only terror sharpened by experience. Jacob's throat burned. Then why me? Why let me see it? The boy shook his head. You weren't supposed to. The dog, he chose you. Jacob turned to the animal. Its chest heaved, but its eyes were fixed, steady. Not just an animal's eyes. Something deeper. Before he could speak, another voice cut through the woods. Jacob! It was his father. Relief surged, then faltered. The tone wasn't worry. It was command. Jacob peeked over the log. His father stood beside the sheriff now, both scanning the trees. Come out, son, his father called. You're making this harder than it needs to be. The sheriff's grin returned. Told you he'd run straight to you. Blood always knows where it belongs. Jacob's world tilted. His father's face was calm, too calm, as if all of this were normal. Dad. Jacob's voice cracked. Tell me he's lying. Please. His father didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened. Then finally, some things, Jacob, are bigger than right and wrong. Bigger than us. You'll understand when you're older. The boy buried his face in Jacob's shoulder, whispering, Don't listen. If you go to him, you'll never come back. Jacob's chest ached. He wanted to believe his father, to trust a man who had taught him how to bait a hook, mend a fence, shoot a rifle. But the memory of the cellar, of the lantern-lit men with chains, seared through him. He tightened his grip on the boy's hand. His father's expression darkened. Don't you walk away from me, Jacob. The sheriff lifted his rifle. Time's up. The dog leapt. It launched itself from behind the log, teeth bared, a snarl ripping through the clearing. It struck the sheriff's arm, clamping down hard. The rifle fired into the air as Collier screamed. Jacob seized the chance. He yanked the boy up, sprinting deeper into the woods. The dog tore free and followed, blood on its muzzle. Bullets tore through branches behind them, but they didn't stop. Jacob's lungs burned, legs numb, but he pushed harder than he ever had before. The boy stumbled again. Jacob dragged him until they crashed into the creek bed. Water splashed cold up their legs. Jacob pulled him downstream, hidden by the current and reeds. The sheriff's voice echoed faintly now, but growing weaker. The dog stayed close, ears swiveling. They didn't stop until the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. They found shelter in an abandoned barn at the far edge of the valley. The roof sagged, the boards gapped, but was dry and hidden. The boy collapsed onto the hay, silent tears streaking his mud-caked face. The dog curled against him, protective. Jacob sat opposite, shaking all over. He couldn't stop hearing his father's voice. Some things are bigger than right and wrong. The betrayal cut deeper than the gunfire, deeper than the fear. His father, his own blood, had chosen to be part of it. Jacob whispered, more to himself than anyone, I'll never go back. The boy lifted his head. You can't. Once you know, they'll never let you. Jacob looked at him. Then what do we do? The boy's eyes were hollow, older than they should be. We survive. Together. Days blurred. They scavenged what they could from the barn. Old feed sacks for warmth, rainwater collected in rusted pails. The dog hunted small game, bringing back rabbits, even once a pheasant. Jacob learned the boy's name, Ethan. He had been missing for weeks, maybe months. He didn't know. Time in the hollow had stripped it from him. At night, they heard trucks on the back roads, voices drifting through the trees. The search wasn't for them in the way Jacob once thought. It wasn't to rescue. It was to silence. Every sound became a threat. Every dawn was a question. How much longer until they were found? One night, Jacob woke to the dog growling low. Its eyes glinted in the dark, fixed on the barn door. Jacob's heart slammed. He shook Ethan awake. A shadow moved outside. Boots on dirt. Jacob. His father's voice. Softer now. Almost pleading. I know you're in there. Don't make me drag you out. Ethan gripped Jacob's arm. Don't listen. Jacob's throat tightened. He wanted to believe his father still, some small part of him clinging to the man he once knew. Son, his father continued. "It doesn't have to be this way. Come out and I'll keep you safe. I promise." Tears burned Jacob's eyes. The dog pressed closer, growl deepening. Jacob whispered back to the boards, voice breaking. "You already broke that promise." Silence, then the sound of retreating boots. Weeks later, the woods grew colder, the air sharper. Jacob and Ethan moved constantly, never staying in one place long. The dog never left them. Its ribs filled out, its coat thickened, but its eyes remained steady, watchful. Jacob began to understand. The dog hadn't just led him to Ethan. It had saved him from becoming part of something he wasn't meant to survive. The truth of what lay in Gray Hollow would always haunt him. The cellar, the lanterns, the men's faces, his father's betrayal. Some secrets couldn't be carried into the light. But he also understood something else. The dog had given him a choice. To see, to run, to live. Years later, when Jacob thought back to that night, the night a stray dog led him into the woods, he couldn't recall the exact sound of the sheriff's whistle or the precise shade of lantern light. But he remembered the weight of Ethan's hand in his, the cut of betrayal in his father's voice, and the steady growl of the dog that never left his side. He never went back to Gray Hollow. Neither did Ethan. The town went on, whispering its secrets, burying its truths. But Jacob carried a different truth inside him, that sometimes salvation doesn't come in the form of fathers or sheriffs or neighbors. Sometimes it comes on four legs, ribs showing, eyes burning with something more human than most men ever hold. And that truth, quiet as it was, saved his life.